It was a dark and stormy night in the small town of Ravenwood. The wind was howling and the rain was pouring down in sheets. The only source of light was the occasional bolt of lightning that illuminated the sky. A group of teenagers, bored with their mundane lives, decided to break into the abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion was said to be haunted, with a dark history that no one wanted to talk about. As they entered the mansion, they were met with an eerie silence. The creaking of the old wooden floors echoed throughout the empty halls. The air was thick with a musty smell that made it hard to breathe. As they explored the mansion, they discovered strange symbols etched into the walls and floors. The symbols seemed to glow in the dim light, almost as if they were alive. Suddenly, they heard a faint whispering sound coming from the basement. They cautiously made their way down the creaky staircase, the darkness enveloping them. As they reached the bottom of the staircase, they saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a tall, dark figure with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through their souls. The figure slowly started to walk towards them, its footsteps echoing through the basement. The teenagers tried to run, but the doors and windows had all been locked from the outside. They were trapped. The figure slowly closed in on them, its eyes fixated on their trembling bodies. As it reached out to touch them, they heard a loud clap of thunder. The room was suddenly illuminated by a bright light, and the figure disappeared into thin air. The teenagers quickly ran out of the mansion, never to return again. But the memory of the haunted mansion and the dark figure that lurked within haunted them for the rest of their lives. They would never forget the horror they experienced that fateful night in Ravenwood. Despite their efforts to forget, the teenagers couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. They started to experience strange occurrences in their own homes, like objects moving on their own and unexplained noises in the middle of the night. One by one, the teenagers started to disappear without a trace. The townspeople grew restless and rumors began to spread that the mansion was cursed. The police investigated, but they couldn't find any evidence to support the claims. Years passed, and the mansion remained abandoned. The town had all but forgotten about the cursed mansion and the teenagers who disappeared. But one day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the mansion once again. As they entered the mansion, they were met with the same eerie silence and musty smell that the previous teenagers had encountered. They saw the same strange symbols etched into the walls and floors. But as they made their way down to the basement, they saw something that no one had seen before. In the center of the basement, there was a strange altar with a book lying on top. The book was bound in human skin, and the symbols on the cover seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The teenagers picked up the book and started to flip through the pages. As they read the ancient text, they unknowingly unleashed a powerful force that had been trapped inside the mansion for centuries. The ground started to shake, and the walls started to crumble. The teenagers tried to run, but it was too late. They were swallowed up by the darkness, never to be seen again. The mansion collapsed, and the townspeople finally knew the truth about the cursed mansion. They realized that the dark figure that had haunted the teenagers all those years ago was just a vessel for a much darker force. A force that had been unleashed by the curious teenagers who had dared to enter the mansion once again. From that day on, the town of Ravenwood was never the same again. As the town of Ravenwood tried to move on from the tragedy, strange occurrences started to happen. People reported seeing ghostly apparitions and hearing eerie whispers in the night. The once peaceful town was now shrouded in darkness and fear. One day, a stranger arrived in Ravenwood. He was a mysterious figure, dressed in a black coat and a hat that obscured his face. He walked into town with a sense of purpose, as if he knew exactly what was happening. The townspeople were wary of the stranger, but they had no choice but to ask for his help. They told him about the cursed mansion and the mysterious force that had been unleashed by the curious teenagers. The stranger listened intently, and then revealed himself to be a powerful sorcerer. He knew exactly what had been unleashed, and he had the power to stop it. The sorcerer led the townspeople to the ruins of the cursed mansion. He chanted ancient incantations and drew symbols in the air with his staff. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind blew through the ruins, and the darkness was lifted. The sorcerer had sealed the dark force back into the ancient book, and it was now trapped once again. The ghostly apparitions and eerie whispers faded away, and the town of Ravenwood was finally at peace. But the sorcerer knew that the curse was not fully lifted. He warned the townspeople to never disturb the ruins of the cursed mansion again, lest the dark force be unleashed once more. Years passed, and the town of Ravenwood became a prosperous and peaceful place once again. But the memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within remained in the minds of the townspeople. They knew that they had been saved by a powerful sorcerer, and that they must always be cautious when dealing with the supernatural. Despite the sorcerer's warning, some of the townspeople remained curious about the cursed mansion. They would sneak into the ruins at night, hoping to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within. But the sorcerer's warnings were not without merit. The dark force that had been unleashed once before had not been fully contained, and it had been slowly growing in power ever since. One night, as a group of teenagers were exploring the ruins, they heard a faint whispering sound coming from the darkness. They felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over them as they realized that the dark force had been unleashed once again. The dark force was more powerful than ever, and it started to spread throughout the town. The ghostly apparitions and eerie whispers returned, and the townspeople were once again plunged into darkness and fear. The sorcerer returned to Ravenwood, knowing that he was the only one who could stop the dark force. He knew that he had to find a way to fully contain the dark force before it consumed the entire town. The sorcerer searched the ruins of the cursed mansion, trying to find any clues that could help him contain the dark force. Finally, he found an ancient scroll that contained the key to containing the dark force once and for all. The sorcerer used his powers to perform a powerful ritual that would seal the dark force back into the ancient book, but this time, he knew that he had to ensure that it would never be unleashed again. He placed the ancient book in a powerful magical barrier that would prevent anyone from ever uncovering it again. The townspeople watched in awe as the sorcerer completed the ritual, and they knew that they could finally rest easy, knowing that the dark force had been contained. The sorcerer left Ravenwood, knowing that his work was done. The town slowly returned to normal, and the memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within slowly faded away. But the sorcerer's warning remained. The people of Ravenwood knew that they must never disturb the ruins of the cursed mansion again, lest they unleash a force that they could never hope to contain. Years passed, and the town of Ravenwood prospered once again. The people were happy, and the memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within had become a distant memory. But the sorcerer's warning remained in the back of their minds. They knew that the cursed mansion was still there, and that the dark force could still be unleashed if they were not careful. One day, a group of adventurous teenagers stumbled upon the ruins of the cursed mansion. They had heard stories of the dark force that had been contained within and were eager to explore the ruins for themselves. As they entered the ruins, they heard a faint whispering sound coming from the darkness. They felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over them as they realized that the dark force had been unleashed once again. The teenagers knew that they had to act fast. They had to find a way to contain the dark force before it consumed the entire town. One of the teenagers remembered the ancient scroll that the sorcerer had used to contain the dark force the last time it was unleashed. He knew that they had to find it, and fast. The group of teenagers searched the ruins of the cursed mansion, looking for any clue that could lead them to the ancient scroll. Finally, they found an old book hidden within the ruins. As they opened the book, a powerful gust of wind blew through the ruins, and the darkness was lifted. The teenagers had contained the dark force once again. The townspeople watched in awe as the teenagers completed the ritual to contain the dark force, and they knew that they could finally rest easy, knowing that the dark force had been contained once again. But the teenagers knew that they had to be careful. They knew that the dark force could be unleashed again, and that they had to ensure that it remained contained. They placed the ancient book in a powerful magical barrier, just as the sorcerer had done before. The teenagers left the ruins of the cursed mansion, knowing that they had saved the town of Ravenwood from a terrible fate. The town slowly returned to normal, and the memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within slowly faded away once again. But the teenagers knew that they had saved the town from a terrible fate, and that they must always be vigilant, lest the dark force be unleashed once again. As time passed, the teenagers who had saved the town of Ravenwood grew up and moved away. The memory of their heroic deeds faded away, and the cursed mansion was forgotten once again. But the ancient book containing the dark force was not forgotten. It remained locked away in its magical barrier, waiting for someone to unleash it once again. Years went by, and the town of Ravenwood prospered. The people were happy, and the memory of the cursed mansion was nothing more than a distant memory. But one day, a new family moved into the town. They were not from Ravenwood, and they knew nothing of the dark force that lay hidden within the ruins of the cursed mansion. As they explored their new home, the family stumbled upon an old book hidden within the ruins of the cursed mansion. They did not know what it was or what it contained, but they felt drawn to it nonetheless. As they opened the book, a powerful gust of wind blew through the ruins, and the darkness was lifted once again. The dark force had been unleashed once again. The family did not know what they had done. They did not know that they had just unleashed a force that could consume the entire town of Ravenwood. But the townspeople knew. They knew that the dark force had been unleashed once again, and that they had to act fast to contain it. The townspeople searched for the ancient scroll that had been used to contain the dark force the last time it had been unleashed, but it was nowhere to be found. They knew that they had to find another way to contain the dark force before it consumed the entire town. The sorcerer who had saved Ravenwood twice before returned to the town once again. He knew that he was the only one who could stop the dark force once and for all. The sorcerer performed a powerful ritual that would seal the dark force back into the ancient book, but this time, he knew that he had to ensure that it would never be unleashed again. He placed the ancient book in a powerful magical barrier that would prevent anyone from ever uncovering it again. The townspeople watched in awe as the sorcerer completed the ritual, and they knew that they could finally rest easy, knowing that the dark force had been contained once again. The family who had unknowingly unleashed the dark force left Ravenwood, never to return. The town slowly returned to normal, and the memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within slowly faded away once again. But the sorcerer knew that the ancient book containing the dark force would always be a threat. He knew that he had to remain vigilant, lest someone unleash the dark force once again. And years went by, and the sorcerer remained in Ravenwood, keeping watch over the town and the ancient book containing the dark force. The memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within slowly faded away, and the town prospered. The sorcerer grew old, but his watchful eye never wavered. He knew that the ancient book containing the dark force was a powerful and dangerous artifact, and he had to ensure that it remained locked away forever. Eventually, the sorcerer passed away, but he had passed on his knowledge and duty to his apprentice, who continued to keep watch over Ravenwood and the ancient book containing the dark force. And so, Ravenwood remained safe and prosperous, with the memory of the cursed mansion and the dark force that lurked within fading further and further away with each passing year. But the ancient book containing the dark force remained locked away, a powerful and dangerous artifact that must always be kept hidden and contained, lest it be unleashed once again.